Attention. Welcome. Can I have your attention, please? Welcome to our lunch on Wednesday, the IEOM conference. We're delighted to have you here, and we have a very dynamic speaker today. Prior to hearing from our speaker, I would like to introduce Dr. Faladi from the University of Lagos, and he will share with us introducing the speaker. Dr. Faladi, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. It is my pleasure to be here, and I feel highly honored to be invited by the organizers of this conference. Typically, I'm grateful to Dr. Ahad Ali, who has invited me to co-chair the section on global engineering education along with Dr. Masood Ali from Wichita State University, Kansas, United States of America. I hope Dr. Ali is in the audience. Can he stand up for recognition? Oh, it's not around. So I want to say that, okay, you are most welcome. I want to sincerely appreciate Dr. Ahad Ali in piloting this conference on manufacturing. Manufacturing is one of the key areas by which problems in the developing countries can be solved. Engineering education goes ahead to ensure that quality engineering graduates are produced, and when we have quality engineering graduates, the critical skills that are required to drive manufacturing industry will be achieved. And when facilities, consumers, and industrial goods are produced, there will be better standard of living, and there will be growth in the economy. So I sincerely applaud the organizer of this conference, and I've been asked to be one of the awardees of this conference. I don't know how it's done, but it's important to the fact that something good is actually happening. And I say I'm grateful to the organizer. I want to request this audience to give the organizer a resounding round of applause for a job well done. Can we do that? Let's give what we are eating. I have the privilege and honor to introduce our keynote speaker for this afternoon. The keynote speaker is Professor Chris Backhouse, a professor of product innovation from Loughborough University, the United States, the United Kingdom, with extensive knowledge and experience of higher education in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. He is a regular international presenter in his field of innovation and entrepreneurship, with extensive links with universities in Singapore, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Indonesia, China, and Egypt. He advises on research and enterprise strategy and on thought curriculum content. He is a mechanical engineer by background, having obtained his PhD while employed by Unilever's PLC. In 1990, he joined Loughborough University, where he has held various senior positions, including Dean of Faculty of Engineering, 150 faculty, 1,000 students, and as a Director of Internationalization Strategy responsible for university strategic international partnership. He has consulted widely in industry and academia, especially in Asia Pacific region. His research activities are focused on the human aspects of motivation, innovations, and entrepreneurship within an industrial context. He has published widely in academic press and presented in numerous international conferences. Kindly join me to welcome Professor Chris Backhouse to the podium.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I will start by saying thank you very much to Professor Falade for that very kind introduction. And I'd just like to say how pleased I am to be here in Dubai presenting at this conference. I look back at the times I've been to Dubai before. I first came to Dubai 30 years ago. And that time I was in transit to Hong Kong. But I remember very well my experience of simply being in transit, of flying in on Emirates Airlines and passing through Dubai Airport, which of course was much smaller than it is now. What I was really struck by was the excellence in provision from the airline and from the airport, and the clear focus on identifying customer requirements and satisfying those customer requirements. And that impressed on me very strongly how a successful business, a successful country can be founded on considering the customer and delivering to the customer what's required. And that's entrepreneurship. And that's entrepreneurship on the national scale. But I want to talk to you today about entrepreneurship on the local scale, on the personal scale, and in particular on the way that a university can encourage entrepreneurship and develop students' capabilities in entrepreneurship. Oh, yeah. My talk is going to cover two concepts of entrepreneurship. The word entrepreneur is used very extensively. There is another word, which is the intrapreneur, which is used less extensively, but is well established in certain people's minds. And the intrapreneur is the entrepreneur inside organizations. And to give you an example of this, I will use somebody who I will remember and is an exemplar of being an entrepreneur, and that was Jack Welch, who was the chief executive of GE in the States, and his contribution to the company and to the economy of the United States was tremendous, and he was an entrepreneur. And a famous phrase from the entrepreneur was to say that his main job was developing talent. And that's clearly a very specific view of how you manage large organizations to make them successful. In this instance, Jack Welch saw himself as a team leader who built the success based upon the contribution from many people around. And the entrepreneur is typified by that attitude to managing change within an organization and driving an organization forward. In contrast, probably the most well-known entrepreneur these days is Jack Ma, who, if I picked out one of his statements, would have a slightly different attitude to life, where one of his statements says, if you are still poor by 35, you deserve it. And here we have someone driving forward his business based upon individuality, leading by example, but I would argue not quite in the same team leadership mode as Jack Welch was involved when he was in GE. Now, we can look at the various attributes of entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and see how they differ. And there we have a chart that indicates certain of these attitudes. I would highlight that ambition and risk-bearing are very similar for both of these two types of individuals. However, when it comes to issues such as the autonomy that they have in their organisation and their ability to, or their desire to raise funds, it differs slightly. And in that respect, when we talk about the skills of an entrepreneur, we have to modify them for intrapreneurs, because intrapreneurs are working in large organisations with political considerations within that organisation, and their skill set in terms of managing the organisation, raising funds in the organisation, and the autonomy they have to act independently differs quite significantly. Now, a little bit more background. We all understand now the educational cycle for developing entrepreneurs through the education system. A very simplified diagram would be that our engineers need to start by understanding the voice of the customer. The voice of the customer is what drives innovation, what drives the successful creation of money out of ideas. Based upon the voice of the customer feeding into the engineering skills that our education system will traditionally have provided, and adding on the business skills to give the complete package of the entrepreneur. And for the engineering profession, it's been roughly a 25-year journey. We've been thinking about this for 25 years. We've been developing our abilities in this area, and we have been improving as we have gone along and building on experience. But I can look back over my 25 years in higher education, and I can well see that the changes that have happened have been gradual, but important in developing the skills of the future entrepreneurs. And if we look at the curriculum, again, in a very simplified version, we can see that what we need to be educating our future entrepreneurs in is understanding markets and customers, using problem-based learning, moving away from the traditional ways of learning, engaging with industry, engaging with alumni to give people networks of contacts for their future careers, internships to give industrial experience, and then business methods to add together to give an overall education to our young engineers so that they can develop into the future entrepreneurs. Now, I want to introduce a new concept now, and the new concept is one of the new concepts that I had in the original title. Because in this lecture I want to go through a journey, and the journey will involve both a geographical journey but also a conceptual journey in terms of what is an entrepreneur. Now, if we look at very high profile concepts currently in the public domain, and Srama Mitra's books on the subject are very popular at the moment, we're looking for billion-dollar unicorns. Well, we all aspire to be billion-dollar unicorns, but I'm afraid to say that very few of us will ever become billion-dollar unicorns. In fact, only about 1 in a billion, well, 1 in a million maybe, will become billion-dollar unicorns. And in that respect, it means that there are 999,999 who will not become billion-dollar unicorns, and therefore we question, is the education system that aspires to such success valid for the great raft of other engineers, other entrepreneurs that come through that will be in a slightly different position. And this was raised recently in an article in the Financial Times, who identified the fact that the unicorns are a very special breed. Not many will be created, but in reality, there will be a vast raft of zebras. Because in reality, and in the way the world of work is changing, the concept that you aspire to be an entrepreneur is no longer valid. The valid aspiration now is that you need to be an entrepreneur. The employment prospects for many people in large industry, the job security, and the general work environment means that more and more people are becoming self-employed and more people are driving their own business. Now, unlike the billion-dollar unicorns, the zebras, as the Financial Times claimed they were called, they are not aspiring to greatness. They are the simple, straightforward people of the past who used to take employment jobs. They want income, they want health, they want family, they want safety, they want friendship. They are not the people who are looking to create billion-dollar businesses. Some of them will aspire to that, but the great raft are entrepreneurs that need to be entrepreneurs simply because that's the way they are going to create their family life and create the world in which they want to live. So my argument today is that we are creating entrepreneurs in everybody and not just in those that aspire to greatness. In the middle, I've included the dragons because the dragons is the image of the City of London, which is the heart of the London of the UK financial district, but it's also where my university, Loughborough, is setting up a new university based around the concepts of innovation, entrepreneurship, to encourage and to build an entrepreneurial environment in which to educate and an entrepreneurial environment in which to graduate students with the right skills for the future work environment. And to highlight, I think, in one diagram, the future for industrial entrepreneurs, and in many ways the future for our future work experience of the young people coming through today. For young people graduating, the road to entrepreneurship starts very, very quickly. In fact, one of my roles is to interview prospective students to come to university. So I'm interviewing 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And many of those prospective students who are still at school are already running their own businesses. Mainly internet businesses, but they are running their own business. And they are learning the challenges of cash flow. They are learning the challenges of dealing with customers who don't pay them. They are dealing with the challenges of running a small business in the same way that many people of their age 20 years ago did not encounter for another 10 years. And they're still at school. And they are coming through with skills which quite surprise some of us these days. Their social skills, their networking skills, but their ambition. And that ambition tailored with their understanding and their knowledge that they will not become wealthy except through their own hard work. The days when they could aspire to a company job and be well rewarded and that they would be successful that way are disappearing. And they know that, and they are prepared for that. But they are prepared for that by becoming entrepreneurs. And in that respect, we need to be supporting them to develop those skills as soon as possible. Now I'm going to take you on a geographical journey, which I've been on over my period at the university. It starts at Loughborough, and it went to Egypt, where I spent some time in 2001 to more quite recently. Then we moved on to Singapore to establish a very interesting innovation and entrepreneurial activity there. And finally, based upon our experiences, we realised that one of the best places to be was actually very close to home, back in London, which is where we have now moved to. And the second part of my presentation will talk about our activities in London. Now, just to give you a little bit of background, Loughborough University is in the centre of the UK. It's a very small town. The population is maybe 50,000 people, and because of that, the university is a university that looks outside its boundaries for connections. We're not in a big city, and therefore we don't make big connections. We've always looked internationally, and we've always looked for opportunities away from our campus, in addition, of course, to building up our capability on our campus. One of the first, we have about 18,000 students. About half of them are in engineering and science. We are a top 10 university in the UK for engineering. It's the largest provider of engineering graduates in the UK. And every year, our students vote as the best student experience of all the universities in England. We've been the top university for student experience for the past 7 or 8 years. It's a campus university based in a small town and with its own unique characteristics. And that's one of the reasons why we established a partnership, first of all, in Egypt. And for 2 years, I was the Vice President of the British University in Egypt, which is this establishment here. One of the key issues about that partnership that we established very early on was that we wanted to ensure that the educational experience of the students was very specific in terms of giving them the life skills that they required for their future. And this is very, very particular in terms of the motto of the university. The motto of the university is learn how to think, not what to think. Now, this university it's not the first time this phrase has been used. It's been used over 100 years by various educators and commentators. But here we have a university in Egypt using this very specific phrase, learn how to think, not what to think. And we were very clear about this. We were not going to go into partnership with a university simply to establish an establishment which would teach by rote. We wanted to do something new. And we have been validating degrees at that university since 2002. It's ramped up over the years, and now there is a student population of about 4,000 students. Again, about half of those are engineers. It's been a very successful activity. My personal experience there has been very rewarding. My experience with the students has been that they valued the particular culture that we've created within that university to give them the life experiences that they need. They found it difficult. Many of them came directly from the state school system where the teaching arrangement was different, and to them it was new to come to the British University in Egypt. But they struggled at first, but fairly soon and quite quickly they began to learn what the benefits were, and they have embraced them, and the result has been in their employment. The employment statistics are outstanding, not just in terms of their employability, but the quality of the companies that they go and work for. They are highly regarded students, and the employers are looking to recruit them in Egypt because they offer very special skills based upon what we've engendered within them. Now, that was the first stepping stone that our university took in developing a large international presence, and that has been rolling now for over 10 years. In a similar vein, we looked where we could go elsewhere, and we moved on to a partnership with Singapore and Nanyang Technological University, NTU. where we set up a research institute, which was a research institute for sports research. Now, sports research was sports equipment and sports medicine. Now, why did we go to Singapore? Well, what was very interesting for us was that we were developing a lot of new ideas, a lot of intellectual property was being developed by our university in sports equipment and other related issues. And we wanted to turn that into business ideas. And the opportunity arose to move our capability to Singapore with NTU and funded by the Economic Development Board. Now, the Economic Development Board of Singapore does not fund basic research. It funds activities which will add to the economic benefit of Singapore very quickly. So they saw the opportunity to leverage our expertise into products and companies, and we saw our opportunity to benefit from spin-out companies in Singapore which would be well supported and well funded with a university partner and with the support of the Economic Development Board. This has now been running about 4 years. It's been very successful. It's got 30 joint PhD students funded from Singapore. It's already created 5 spin-out companies. It's generated just about 5 million Singapore dollars in income already, external income. And the key issue there was to look at PhD students and to look at the ideas they were generating and focus on developing business opportunities from those ideas, focus on developing spin-outs, and focus on developing, on generating income. And we identify Singapore as the key enabler to achieve that. So that was the second stage in the geographic journey. The third stage, which is the one that I'm going to talk about now, was the biggest leap that we've taken, and in fact it was the shortest leap, because we are now setting up Loughborough University in London. And this is now an exciting new project for us, because we are establishing this university based upon our learning experience from our initiatives in Egypt and in Singapore. We are deliberately establishing a new kind of university which will drive forward innovation, entrepreneurship for all the students there, and we're setting up the infrastructure to achieve that. Clearly, as a university that sits in a small rural village in the UK, moving into London has its challenges, not least learning the politics of London and how things happen there. But it gives us an incredible opportunity to exploit what we know and what we understand about entrepreneurship and use that to educate future engineers. And the vision for this university is very important. And now I am switching over to the corporate presentation for the university, because this is the presentation that we provide to everybody, clearly stating what our vision is for the university. It's a postgraduate community at the heart of the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. It's based upon the 2012 Olympic site. It's an inspiring environment promoting discovery and action-based learning. A very important aspect of this is the philosophy behind it. It is intended to be a special type of activity promoting discovery and action-based learning over here. It is not your traditional university. Now, many people in traditional universities may say that's what we are there for anyway, but I'm saying that we are explicitly saying that this is our role. We are looking for a place where innovation flourishes, where entrepreneurial aspirations are nurtured, and where people come together to share ideas. And to equip and empower our students with the skills, network and ambition required to embrace with confidence the challenges of an ever-changing global society. Now those are that's our key vision for this new university. There's a nice picture of London. It's one of the few days when the sun is shining and the sky is bright blue, but it gives you a reminder maybe for those of you who remember the 2012 Olympic Games, where the site is. It's in the east of London. It's only 2 or 3 miles from the centre of London. It's where the 2012 Olympics were held. Loughborough was very heavily involved in the Olympics. One of the aspects of Loughborough University I've not mentioned is our link into sport, sports performance, sports development, sports technology. And we in fact hosted the UK team as the holding base for the Olympics, and we also hosted the Japanese team at our Loughborough University. Our link with sport is very strong, and therefore when we proposed that we should set up in London on the Olympic site, it was very well received by the politicians in London and also by collaborating universities. The Olympic Park, it's an iconic park. The important aspect of the 2012 Olympic Park in London was that it was built with a very strong recognition of the future legacy that it was going to have to establish. At the time of funding the Olympic Park, it was maybe 2008, it was a deep, deep economic crisis for the UK and for many other parts of the world. The funding was very, very difficult. It could only be justified by a very strong focus on the legacy of this park. And whilst every Olympics talks about legacy, in this instance it was strongly enforced, and therefore the opportunity was already there to establish something very exciting. We are starting relatively small, but we will grow. It's postgraduate, it's next to a significant conference centre, and it's next to London's largest innovation centre. And innovation in London is now becoming very interesting. It's something I'm going to talk about in a minute, but one of the real benefits that we are seeing from this is the combination of the university with the innovation activities in London. Approach to teaching. We will, of course, teach essential theory, but the enterprise theme will be throughout the curriculum. So it will be a very strongly focused university on developing skills for postgraduates which employers want. And by employers, I'm using the words that my university uses as employers, but I would also say those skills will be the entrepreneurial skills that employers want, because the employers are going to be mainly small businesses, high-tech businesses that employ their entrepreneurial engineers to be exciting, modern, and thought-provoking. It will work closely with industry here, and there will be every degree program we offer will have guaranteed work experience. We have always offered work experience to all our students at undergraduate level in our university. It's the only university in the UK which offers it to all students. We really value it. It changes the characteristics of the student. We're now going to offer it to every postgraduate student in this institution. Typical master's degrees that we're going to be offering, you will not see the traditional phrases of mechanical engineer or civil engineer. You will see master's programs which add to the core disciplines through entrepreneurship, innovation management, managing innovation, design innovation, entrepreneurial design, and included in there are some of the sports activities that we are well regarded for around the world. So all of the concept that we've developed for this new university will be around entrepreneurship and innovation. Employability, we felt very strongly, as we did in our previous experience in Egypt, that the opportunity could only be realized if we really focused on employability. The opportunity that being in London provides for us is tremendous. It gives us the opportunity to interact with businesses. London is now becoming a hub of innovation, not just in the financial spheres, but in the high-tech spheres as well. It allows people to be brought in for guest lectures, and on top of that, we will be strongly mentoring on the employability aspects of the students. Collaborators. We've got several collaborators, world-class universities. Multinational corporations are, many are headquartered in London, of course, and they are very keen to work with us. And then there is a whole raft of SMEs who are run by highly educated, highly capable individuals who are very successful, and they want to pass on their success to our students. And then they want to recruit them. The experience we had in Egypt was when you brought in good employers to lecture to the students, to develop their skills, then they wanted to recruit them afterwards. And this is the great opportunity that we see here. Some of the partnerships that we've established already, we're working closely with MIT in their REAP activity, which is the Regional Enterprise Acceleration Partnership, where we work on a 2-year collaborative program to develop a entrepreneurial strategy for the region. And interestingly, we as Loughborough University have gone into London, and we've brought MIT into London for the first time in this program. And that's a very exciting opportunity for us because it allows us to tap into a network of strategic level entrepreneurship which MIT have developed with partnerships in other cities around the world, and see how that can be feeding into the overall strategy for London. Tech City is a new concept within London. Tech City is London's follow-on, or if you think about Silicon Valley, then what's happening in London over the past few years is now called Tech City. Tech City is the largest startup for small businesses outside the first and second, which are in San Francisco and New York. Tech City used to be called Silicon Roundabout because it's based around a part of East London where there's a very large roundabout. It's interesting in that it's been self-generated. Small companies have come together in East London because they've seen the opportunities for locating there from the networking and from the skill base. London is such a dynamic city now. It attracts people from all over the world. It attracts the best from all over the world. And we are beginning to see, and it's not anything like Silicon Valley yet, but it's starting to be there. It will be there in 10, 20, 30 years. Tech City is a very exciting development within the UK for the creation of small, very successful high-tech businesses. And the mapping of that activity and the networking that goes on there is quite surprising for those who have not been involved with it before. We're working with University College London and Imperial College to work with Tech City on exploiting the connections that we have in high-tech entrepreneurship in those areas. And then adding to that, we've taken the opportunity to set up a major research activity in advanced propulsion. The UK is the UK government has put a lot of money into low-carbon propulsion systems, electric, hybrid, non-fossil fuel power systems. We've got a very strong tradition in research in powertrain systems for cars and for propulsion systems for aircraft. This is a multi-million pound UK initiative, and we have set ourselves up as the digital hub, digital spoke for the powertrain research development. So here we are mixing the entrepreneurial education, but making sure that we are maintaining our research presence. I have to say, one of the learning experiences from setting up a university overseas that I went through was that the establishment of a new university overseas is straightforward, relatively straightforward when it comes to teaching, but to overlay a research activity on a growing teaching university is very, very difficult. You have to have the resource, and you have to focus very clearly on doing that. So in this instance, we've done it from day one. We've put in a major research activity, well funded, but very well supported by the university, to support the activity of the university and to work in parallel with the university. The one thing we did not want was a teaching-only university, and that's something we would not tolerate. So, to summarise, Loughborough University in London, multidiscipline postgraduate community in the Olympic Park, London, very close to the centre of London. Programmes developed to maximise employment, prospects and skill, work experience, guaranteed accommodation, and generous scholarships as a startup. We're just starting, so we're offering generous scholarships at the moment, but those will not last. But that's what we're doing in London. It's a very exciting activity. It builds upon what we've done overseas in the past, but now we're effectively establishing a new international university in the heart of London to support our activities for developing entrepreneurship education. So, in summary, and I am now closing in on my original theme, the story I've generated, which is a journey, it's a 25-year journey of educating entrepreneurial engineers. It's a geographic journey that we've gone through from Loughborough to Egypt to Singapore and back to London. Is all related to the overall concept of my vision that all engineers have to be entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs. The choice that we used to have in the past of either being innovative and entrepreneurial or simply taking a job and working for a large company for many years, that choice is disappearing rapidly for many people in many countries around the world. It's certainly disappearing very rapidly for many people in the UK. The future employment prospects or the future activity prospects for many of our students is going to be self-employment, entrepreneurial employment, working for small businesses where their entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial skills will be absolutely necessary. Universities, we will need to educate the future unicorns, the future dragons, and the future zebras. But when we're educating for future zebras, for future unicorns, we need to remember the future zebras, because not everyone will be a Jack Ma, or not everyone will be a Bill Gates. And you could argue that by trying to inspire everybody to be a Bill Gates or a Jack Ma, then you are leading them on the right path. However, I do think we have to think about that a little bit and say, at the end of the day, we will be educating entrepreneurial zebras, because they will be the vast raft of people working in this world in the future. And how that education differs or how we actually approach that is going to be, I think, our challenge for the future. What we're trying to do in London is to ensure that everybody gets an entrepreneurial training, not just the ones that want it. And whilst at the moment many of the courses that we're running have it in the title, we are trying very hard to ensure that we are recruiting students who possibly don't realise the importance of it yet, or don't realise what that word means. But what we want to do is to ensure that all of our students develop these skills and this understanding and this motivation. Clearly our universities need to move even closer to employers. We've been saying that for a long time, and we've been doing it for a long time, but we need to think which employers we're talking about. The really exciting employers are often the small companies. The small companies are often the ones that can't release people to interact with universities. We need to go to them. I think in the past we've really asked companies to come to us, to talk to us. And the companies we approach are the ones that can release people to take time out to talk to us. What we need to be doing is talking to the people that might not realise that they can take time out to talk to us. So we need to incentivise them. We need to say to them, what are they going to get out of it? And they can get a lot out of it, because they can get people working for them, either employees or as subcontractors. And many of these what used to be employees will now become subcontractors, self-employed, driving their own businesses. We've been on a long journey of change, I think, as engineers. It's not been easy. It's not been easy for us to take this mindset. Some people have taken it very, very quickly. I mean, I look at the people here from Lawrence Tech. I mean, they've been talking about these types of things for a long time. Entrepreneurship in the engineering world. However, we need to do much more of it. We need to see this not just as an add-on. We need to see it as a fundamental part of being a future engineer. It is no longer an option. It is something that all of our younger generation have to take on board. We've been on a long journey of change, but I have to say, I think the next one is just beginning, because I'll leave you with one thought, and let me give you this thought. I've been talking for the past 45 minutes now about the entrepreneurial engineer from the viewpoint of the consuming customer, which is industry. The thing that is really challenging me, and it challenges other people around the world. I've been in interesting conversations with Professor Yakut, École Polytechnique to Montreal, that the students are changing. And everything I've been saying about the entrepreneur of the future is based upon what the government wants, what the business wants, what the employers want. We are now heading into a world, and it's only been coming up in about the past 2 or 3 years, where the students are changing rapidly. Social media is changing, then their ability to learn is changing, their ability to understand is changing, their demands are changing. They are understanding what the future holds for them. They know that they won't get big pensions. They know that they won't get employed in big companies. They know that they are on their own. And therefore, they're demanding more from us. So whatever I've been talking about in terms of the entrepreneurial student, entrepreneurial engineer, is fine, but that's a pull from big business, government, employment. The students are starting to push, and they're starting to push in all sorts of different ways, and we need to be listening to them, and we need to come together and match what they're pushing for and what we're pulling for. And I've never seen any time in my career in higher education where that is required more than now, because the students are generating their voice. They want to be entrepreneurs. We want them to be entrepreneurs. We need to come together and work out a way of doing it. Thank you very much. So I'm not quite sure what timing is, but I think I might have finished a little bit early, but I'm happy to take any questions, if there are any.
Thank you very much for this nice presentation. I have a question about entrepreneurship. There is statistics nowadays that say that the difference between the people who are rich become richer and poor are poorer.
Yes.
And what I noticed myself, because I tried to have, I already have my own spin-out company, and we are trying to sell some of our product, which is done by my student and I. And I noticed that the competition from the huge companies it's very easy for them to just see a new idea, and then they have the capacity and the money to go and realize what we cannot do and do it themselves. So the competition is unbalanced, very, a little bit unfair. So I wonder if you have some statistics about your students when they went to have their own companies and to practice entrepreneurship, whether you have statistics over a long range of time to see how they managed after a few years.
I don't honestly have statistics with me. I've got two answers to your question. The first one is, from a personal basis, what we're seeing is far more students starting up their own businesses. Like many universities, we have an incubator activity which encourages students to create their own business, and we take a share in their business and we support them through the growth period. That is rising, I would say, probably doubled in the past 5 years easily, probably more than that. Although when I say doubled, I'm only picking out those small businesses where they're realistic small businesses. There are a lot of businesses are started which are never realistic, and I don't really count those. But I guess that's where we should be focusing a lot of our activity. But I would also say that I totally agree with everyone can see that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and the students can see this. The students can see that however hard they work, their life opportunities are being reduced. You know, they work very hard, but they still might not be successful. It's going back in the past when 1 in 100 was successful, became super rich, and the rest stayed less well off. Well, what we need is to facilitate their ability of these students to actually increase their life potential. And one thing that is very clear to me is that there are certain activities going on around the world where there might be a very powerful organisation making a lot of money out of an activity, but other people are using that to develop their own wealth. You know, Apple is super rich for a few people, but the opportunity to develop apps for Apple is becoming a possibility for people to make good income. They don't become super rich, but they can make a good income. If you look at something like the taxi app Uber, the people running Uber are getting rich, but at the same time it's facilitating drivers in some countries around the world which are not well-developed infrastructures to actually, it's enabling them to create their own business. In the same way that eBay allowed school children that I interviewed to create their own business. A lot of these activities which create the super rich allow people to make a comfortable living through its use. And so I think that the paradigm is shifting about how you create wealth at that level. I haven't got the answers, but I can certainly see the shift.
Yeah. Listening to you, it seemed like I'm rehearing something that we have been hearing in our university for the last few years.
Yeah.
Because we are transforming ourselves to innovation campus and innovation university.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it matches with what you are saying. Your university, you said about 50% of the students are in science and engineering. Our case is different. Engineering and science are much less percentage-wise.
Yes.
So we have a large percentage of liberal arts, fine arts, those students.
Yes.
When we talked about this, they initially did not feel that they were not part of this journey.
Yes.
How could they be part of this journey when they are looking at and they are interested in intellectual growth
Yes.
as opposed to professional path?
Yes.
But the way to get them into the same mode of thinking is to ask them to think about what they do or what they're interested in or what their future is like, is to think more broadly.
Yes.
So for example, if you talk about design, initially everybody will say, oh, it's engineering or business. But if you look at design in a more broader sense, design can include a lot of intellectual areas. And in a lot of those areas, you can have entrepreneurial thrust
Yes.
and be successful in those things. And they can be the drivers, developers of new businesses, even though their initial area was not the so-called engineering and business areas. And so we are all engineers. I think we understand this. Hopefully we understand that. This. But there is a big group of other students and the past question about haves and have-nots. Some of them are the ones that feel that they are have-nots.
Yes.
And how to make them part of this is probably one of the things that we need to think about and talk about.
Yes. Well, my response would be I totally agree. I mean, I'm fortunate in coming from the university I come from in that it's always had a spirit of entrepreneurship, which has been there ever since its establishment. I do understand the difficulty of leadership. You need somebody or a group of people at the top of the university to believe in this. And if you haven't got them there, then I don't think you can make it happen. However, the only other experience I would pass on is that what I find is that we are, as universities, all conscious that we must listen to the students more. And so when I was in a position where I wanted change in the university, I talked to the students. I went down to the Students' Union. I talked to individual students who were influential, and I said, why are you not asking these questions of the senior management in the university? Because, strangely, when the students ask a question of senior management, the senior management listen very closely. But when the staff ask the questions, they don't listen so closely. But the students pay for the university now in the UK, so that's important. So I find, I really do believe that it must be different in different countries, but certainly in the UK, the students are getting a voice. They are beginning to say what they want. And they are beginning to follow degrees where they almost know there are limited job prospects. So they need these skills. The students need to be saying to universities, I need life skills to actually have a good life after I leave university. If the students don't say that, then the university will, I think, sit still. But if the students start saying, this is what we want, then I think the universities will change. They have to. They have to. Yes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, Prof.
I project fairly well. In 1968, I taught my first course in entrepreneurship. I've been doing it ever since. In 1985, Gifford Pinchot, who wrote Entrepreneurial, coined the term entrepreneurial. He also published the 10 Commandments of Entrepreneurship. One of the first commandments is go to work every day, being willing to be fired. That's what he said. Entrepreneurship is about opportunity recognition, engaging the customer, understanding the importance of failing and failing often, uncertainty, ambiguity, and of course, managing or tolerating risk. Most of my research has been on the entrepreneurial child. We've continued to suppress that behavior for years. We've medicated that child. We've suppressed that behavior. And look at our results. Entrepreneurship is about discovery, exploration. It's a passion. It's not a job. A job is J-O-B, journey of the broke. You can't sell it. It's not yours. It never will be yours. Entrepreneurship is what you control. It's your life. You can sell it, and that's the exit strategy and the creation of wealth. When you have an idea and you create intellectual property, you also create wealth. I really enjoyed your message. It's a powerful message. We need to say to ourselves that companies today are looking for entrepreneurs, looking for students who think like entrepreneurs. They are the champions. They are the ones that can help us compete in a global environment. And that's truly, the world is flat. So I want to thank you, Chris, for bringing a very powerful message to us. But I wasn't going to say anything, but how could I help myself? And I'm not going to apologize, because I truly believe in the value of entrepreneurial thinking. That does not necessarily mean that you will create your own venture. Keep in mind, right-directed thinking, a whole new mind by Pink. We need a blend of right-directed thinking and left-directed thinking. That balance is critical in the engineering discipline. With that, I'll rest my case.
Sorry, he has made some comments. I was supposed to have asked that question earlier. You have so many faculties of engineering in some universities. And you told us basically your own university has faculties of science and engineering. Because I have a problem I've talked about. You have some faculties of engineering, contractors, companies come to do all their structures for them, their design. In the university, they come, contractors come, not basically because maybe they want, but these faculties haven't offered to do the design for the university. Even the roads, okay, I know one university, in the Niger Delta. The roads there, you find out that foreign companies will come to construct because it's a challenge to get materials that will stand the test of that. So you don't see this faculties of engineering doing this structure. So he hasn't told us, maybe in your university, do you have history of your faculty of engineering doing some instructions for the university, designs of buildings and some projects?
Absolutely not, no. The academic engineers are academic engineers who teach and do research. We don't do building design or road design or any types of design for the university. I've only one experience where we asked a professor of computer science to develop the IT infrastructure for the university. That was the worst thing we ever asked an academic to do.
Thank you very much for your exciting speech, and thank you everyone. And if anyone has a question, they can spend time with you. We have a shortage of time. We have to go to another meeting. So he deserves a great hand from all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
have